So you said you're on an incense kick lately. What does that mean?
Wow, just dive right in.
To the heavy stuff.
I was tipped off by an Australian priest, actually, to a Hebrew word from the Song of Songs that I could come back to. But it led me into the world of incense. And it turns out that incense is the blood of the tree.
You're not talking metaphorically. This is where it comes from.
No, it's really the blood of the tree. So frankincense and myrrh, at least. I'm sure there's lots of different kinds of incense and whatever, but frankincense and myrrh, which certainly have a central place in Catholicism, are the blood of the tree. It's the sap. Wikipedia says, through repeatedly wounding the tree, sap is brought forth that can then congeal into pellets that are hardened. So it's a beautiful symbol in our liturgical celebrations that it's the wounds. So wounds that have been brought forth and hardened and are useless and dead and odorless, then placed by the priest, it's a priestly action to impose incense, placed by the priest on the coal of divine charity. It then is melted and releases a sweet fragrance that's offered in worship. So the priest is the one who takes the wounds of his people under the symbol of incense and places them as on the coal of divine charity, and then is able to transform wounds into worship. Christ is the one who transforms wounds into worship. It's what the cross is. And then he extended the transformation mechanism, you might say, to us through the Mass, which is the perpetuation of his sacrifice, continually transforming suffering into love and into prayer.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm on a little incense
Keep going.
kick. Yeah. So, all right. So back to the Hebrew word. Song of Songs 4 verse 9 is, "You have ravished my heart, my sister, my bride. You have ravished my heart with one glance of your eye." So ravish my heart. Now there are people who really speak Hebrew who are out there who aren't normally in my conferences when I'm talking about this, so forgive my pronunciation. But something like leva bethini is and lev is heart, but then that verb form altogether is ravish the heart. That word is used in extra biblical literature to describe the stripping of bark from a tree. The bark is the hard outer layer of the tree that protects the tree. Stripping the bark makes it vulnerable, and it exposes the tender phloem layer, which is beneath the bark where the sap runs.
Wow.
And so the bridegroom's heart is made vulnerable by the bride. He lets down his walls. He allows the tender underlayer to be exposed. He allows himself to be wounded by her beauty, by her plight, by her own woundedness, by his desire to rescue her and serve her. And then he also, so the priest not only offers the wounds of the people, but his own wounds that have hopefully been brought forth by that kind of vulnerability. So trees and incense and
unlike
wounds.
the bridegroom, our Lord, who you say kind of allows himself to be moved, what about the bride who needs that bark scraped off through pain and grace? It's different, right? Because I don't intentionally all the time. I mean, I can intentionally, by God's grace, lay down my defenses, but sometimes it feels like that stuff has to be bark has to be peeled away.
Well, I might have to circle back around to incorporate that. I'm so sensitive to not stripping people's defenses. I love, there's a phrase in John of the Cross where he talks about the Lord loves us into letting go. And I think that's the right tone, that when we are well loved, then we let down the defenses, then we allow our hearts to be stripped.
Father, I can't cry 10 minutes into the video. It's not fair. We got to wait at least 2 more hours. Yeah, I remember I jumped on a call with you, since you're my spiritual father, and I was just maybe a little insecure about like dumping everything I was ready to dump on you. That's not what I was doing, but just sharing my heart with you, because I thought, this guy has like 1,000 spiritual children. It must get exhausting. And so I said to you, isn't it exhausting hearing people's crap constantly? Do you remember what you said?
I'm never exhausted by it. Not hearing the depths of people's hearts is exhausting. The bark is exhausting.
Yeah.
The tender
vulnerability,
underlayer,
you said, is the most beautiful thing.
The most beautiful thing.
Pride is the exhausting thing.
That's right.
Our defenses are.
Yeah. And then we don't, again, it's not a matter of attacking defenses. I don't know. Maybe there are ways to do that. I mean, there's certainly a place for admonition. We call people to account, especially people in power who are multiply layered. But in my world, it's loving down defenses. When somebody is confident that they can expose that underlayer and it's not going to be wounded by me, that they can expose the wounds and they're not going to be further wounded by me, then the defenses come down.
Okay.
And I appreciate the defenses. They've held people together. They've held all of us together. The world is harsh. It's hard to walk around in this world where there's a lot of defensiveness. There's a lot of attacking. There's a lot of, and it takes a lot of courage to it takes a lot of strength to hold ourselves together to actually interact in that space. And then it takes courage to become vulnerable. And rightfully, we need to trust. And we should be able to determine trust, and people should earn that trust.
Yeah, you shouldn't be exposing yourself to people who are suspect.
That's right.
Thanks so much for watching. Please like if you liked, and if you loved, subscribe.